This episode is sponsored by Deep-Root Pinball. Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland looks amazing. What else do they have in store? Review will be in less than a few weeks. Get ready. Are dimples and marks on pinball playfields normal? Deep-Root doesn't think so. They have a hammer test warranty. Hammer tested quality coming soon from Deep-Root Pinball. Hello, pinheads. Welcome to This Week in Pinball's August 2020 recap of everything happening in the pinball world. During the 2020 California Extreme Digital event, Brian Eddy and Mike Vinikour gave a fascinating presentation about the development of Stranger Things. They shared several images of the machine in development and discussed their method for designing a game and how they approached the theme. They also talked about the projector and the UV lighting, as well as the challenges that went into the UV lights and inks. They talked about the software and the rules design, as well as storyboarding the modes and the video and audio development. They're still working on the last modes that need to go into the game, and they're getting close. According to the most recent Pinball Magazine newsletter, Dutch Pinball is planning to hire additional help and move into a bigger facility in order to build the Big Lebowski pinball machines more quickly. More room is needed to hire more employees and speed up the building process of the Big Lebowski. The production will continue during the summer holiday. Rock Fantasy was joined by Stern software engineer Tim Sexton for a video interview on their YouTube channel. Tim explained the types of different games that Stern produces other than its cornerstone titles. There are studio titles like Elvira or the Beatles, and private labels for high-powered brands looking to add pinball products to their accessory line. Tim also talked about his work on Iron Maiden and how there were a lot of new people working on that machine. He discussed working on Deadpool and Black Knight, and about working with Steve Ritchie. He described how much of a team effort games are, and talked about the New York City Pinball Championships. Check out the full video on their YouTube channel. Spooky Pinball Podcast featured a very special interview between Lawlor Interview, the founder of Spooky Pinball, and his son, Bug. They talked about Bug's personality being more outgoing than Charlie's, his first memory of pinball, and the generational gap between people that are interested in pinball. They talked about Bug's passion to design a pinball machine and how he wants to get more involved in competitive pinball, as well as his job as a play tester and what that entails, tracking down every issue and everything wrong with machines that are going to go out. Charlie talked about the design process and making it more of a team process. They discussed original themed games versus licensed themes and Spooky's sustainability. Check out the full podcast at spookypinball.com. Roger Sharpe, the man that saved pinball, wrote an intriguing article about the future of the game. His article describes the lessons of the past and his speculations of the future. He wrote, "It is a time of uncertainty across the globe. However dire our personal feelings are, there is one undisputable fact. Pinball has always proven itself to be resilient." Roger discussed the days, weeks, and months ahead and the amount of attention being paid to pinball today. He also talked about the new innovations and manufacturers in the pinball world, as well as the outpouring of interest in players to once again compete in tournaments. Roger wrote, "The future is bright as my silver crystal ball reveals. Pinball deserves its place in the sun and to continue to be celebrated and enjoyed." Pinball Profile interviewed Jerry Thompson, sound designer at Stern Pinball. He talked about working with the Stern team and what it's like to make a licensed machine, like the Beatles. All licensors get the final approval for their product. With the Beatles pinball game, the Stern team was told which sounds and which images they were allowed to use. At first, they weren't allowed to use any voices of the Fab Four. But after the remaining band members got the chance to look at the pinball game, they agreed to let Stern use the sounds and voices. Good job, team! He also talked about his voice work on several different games and about pinball shows and his work in organizing them. He talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and working with Adam West on Batman 66. Check out the full episode on pinballprofile.com. Rest in peace, Chaz Siddiqui, who recently passed away. Chaz was a loved tech support engineer that worked at Stern Pinball for decades and helped many hobbyists fix issues with their machines. There is a thread on pinside.com about Chaz where friends and family can share stories. If you have a story about Chaz that you'd like to share, please share it. His family also set up a GoFundMe if you'd like to donate. Jersey Jack Pinball Podcast was joined by Pat Lawlor and Kurt Hill of Hemispheres Amusements. They discussed how Pat ended up getting his first machine back into his possession 47 years after he first owned it. He shared his thoughts on how games have changed since he entered the hobby 40 years ago. Pat talked about designing games at Williams and bringing toys back into the games, like the spinning discs from Fireball, and bringing to life the mechanical toys in Funhouse and Addams Family that so many players loved. He stated, "The task of designing the games was always one of pushing the envelope." David Dennis and Ron Hallett from Silver Ball Chronicles released podcast episode 6, Steve Ritchie, The Mullet Years, where they discuss the famous game designer Steve Ritchie's amazing innovations and firsts in pinball. They talk about Steve's collaboration with designer and programmer Larry DeMar and the development of Steve's games, like High Speed, F-14 Tomcat, Black Knight 2000, Roller Games, Terminator 2, High Speed 2, Star Trek The Next Generation, No Fear, and about his voice work on the Mortal Kombat game. Check out the full episode of Silver Ball Chronicles podcast. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, our monthly giveaway winners. Congrats to all the previous month's winners. Make sure to go to patreon.com/TWIP and become a member. By giving This Week in Pinball a small monthly donation, you will automatically be entered in our upcoming monthly giveaways and also get all of the awesome TWIP perks. You can also email giveaways at thisweekinpinball.com with your name, address, and email to be entered for this month only. This Week in Pinball swag pack goes to Steve. Just in case you get thirsty during gameplay, a Pinball Life Pin Gulp goes to Dennis. A PinQuest hat goes to Kurt. A Hooked on Pinball gift card goes to Wesley. Get a cool mod. A Silver Ball swag gift card goes to Edward. A Titan Universal Silicone Ring Kit goes to Frieden. Pinball Pimp limited edition shirts goes to Chris. A gift card to Comet Pinball goes to Bruce. A Pin Sound gift card goes to Anthony. And finally, the grand prize, Pin Stadium Neo. Drum roll please. Goes to Scott. And a huge thank you to our generous sponsors that help make this hobby great. Our Patreon members make TWIP possible. Special thanks to our newest subscribing Patreon supporters, Jesse, John, Mike, Jake, and Harry. Between forums, podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, it's hard to keep up with everything happening in the world of pinball. This Week in Pinball is your one-stop shop for pinball news and happenings. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for our YouTube channel. Catch you on the flip side, pinballers!